Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you on Tuesday, July 8th. And a quick video about a Wall Street Journal headline I got about a week ago, where I woke up and heard that the Pentagon offers plan to arm the Ukraine, which, right off the bat, what can you say about that one? And the snippet says Pentagon and State Department have devised plans to supply Ukraine with anti-tank missiles and other weaponry, and are seeking White House approval as Kiev battles Russia-backed separatists and ties between Moscow and Washington fray. Let's see. A senior administration official says there's been no decision on the armaments proposal, and it wasn't discussed at a high level. So I guess Trump hasn't gotten this one yet. Who knows? Maybe he's heard of it by now. But just, and I think this all does tie into the economics. Certainly so much of this printed money used to fund this industrial war complex and building tanks and sending them places. Yet the one thing that gets lost often is, how does this stuff get paid for? Now, I think people might somewhat assume, all right, well, we get taxed, so we go fund the army, but that's not the case. There's a reason that we're running these massive deficits, and that the borrowing, keep in mind, they say the public debt is about 20 trillion. Of course, Congress doesn't follow its own accounting laws. For example, when Enron was doing all of its off-balance sheet financing, there's a set of laws, and Congress brought them in there, and I would say rightly so. Well, I want to be careful saying rightly so about anything Congress does, but brought these guys before Congress, threw some of them in jail. Certainly, actually, a really fascinating financial story to read about. There's a great DVD, and I think the book by the same name was the one I read, The Smartest Guys in the Room. Fascinating stuff. Interesting how no matter what amount of money or power you have, if you're making decisions that are of questionable ethics, shall we say, eventually that catches up. Similar to how the idea that the U.S. can go police the world endlessly. Again, I want to be careful in how I say this, although as I grow a little older, my beliefs about the intention of whether it's really to go make everybody skip around in democracy in foreign lands, or if it's for less than genuine purposes. But how did the Roman Empire fall? How did any of these empires fall, where eventually the weight and the cost of trying to fund these massive armies and suppress people around the globe, time after time, you see the same pattern. The debt builds up, then the money starts getting devalued. You heard about the coins in the Roman Empire, where they started with gold or silver, and then eventually there's more filler metal. So what's happening now is nothing new. And I guess the point with the whole the amount of debt in Enron was that this says 20 trillion. Excuse me. Of just the publicly stated debt, but if you factor in Social Security, Medicare, all the other stuff that they promised to pay, the numbers get about beyond 100 trillion. And these aren't even just my estimates. This is from the Congressional Budget Office, and that's as of a couple of years ago. I don't think anyone knows for sure what it is now, but again, another one of those simple metrics that shows you that we're looking at something that is unsustainable. So sure, stocks are flying, real estate's flying, but I know it's not easy to watch all these things and say, all right, well, I'm just going to wait for some event which may or may not happen. But to my school of thought, and especially seeing that we're now looking at arming a new set of people in another section of the globe, you can see where this is headed. And I would argue, or maybe this is more of a guess, but what happens to the ability to send troops all over the place if you lose the ability to print money? Can you say we're going to go attack China and China crashes the dollar, and then can you still pay troops? So there's a degree to which I think so many good things will happen once this dollar matrix is finally done. I don't know how easy or not it will be transitioning to there. I don't know if that's going to work out for everyone. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where I think the best that we can do is prepare and look at what's happening and thinking logically, and then there's some degree of life that factors in. Yet these are the signs that you can see that they're going to continue pushing it. Probably until it blows up, or maybe there's already a plan in place of what's the scandal going to be that's going to cause the market crash. In either case, it's just I don't know if it's funny, but it's almost comical waking up, reading these headlines and thinking of all these things going on. Where does that money come from? Again, it gets printed, which in my opinion is one of the big reasons why I do subscribe to the belief that on some level there's someone in the government that is aware of what's going on in the precious metals markets and is either sanctioning it or looking the other way. I hear a lot of people talk about Steve Mnuchin's button that he can press. Steve Mnuchin being, I believe he was a former Goldman guy and now the Treasury Secretary. But when you have the ability to just write paper and there's really no actual law in place that you have to adhere to, yes, you do have a system where that leaves it up to, you could have one person or one group of people that can make these asset prices anything they want. We see the Fed do it with interest rates all the time. That's market manipulation, saying, here's what the market thinks, but we just want it to be this. So that's one that happens out in the open, just a matter of perspective. I continue to think that to be able to do some of these things like arm different groups or sell drugs to foreign nations or all the nonsensical things that we find out from guys like Seymour Hersh and other investigators, or when you dig into MK Ultra, or just the endless rabbit hole you go down of what we were told growing up and then what actually happens. So going to be fascinating, certainly, to see how much longer it goes on for, but thought it was an interesting little news story, and the kind of thing that I watch for and just is amazing at times. But what I like to think would be the advantage of going to an honest currency, where there's all this money that disappears into black holes or gets printed, or no one ever really knows where it goes. And certainly as I learn more about the cryptos and the transparency of the system, I think this is one of the advantages that maybe one day we'll get back to living as people, just trading, not blowing each other up. And I'm excited about that. So hope you are too. Hit the subscribe button, and we will see you again tomorrow. Thanks.